Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. It is 6 o'clock. I see that we are live on Facebook and recording. My name is Sarah Lawrence. I am the chair of the Mont Vernon School Board. Today we will be conducting a school board meeting of the Mont Vernon School Board. Before we get started, I just want to read through a checklist to ensure that the meeting that we're holding is in compliance with the right to know law. As the chairperson of the Mont Vernon School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor and as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04 and its extensions, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. In accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that number one, we are providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possible by video and other electronic means. We are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the committee and selective staff have the ability to communicate contemporaneously in this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously watch and or listen to the meeting on Zoom and via phone by following the directions and the links provided on our website, which is www.sau39.org. Second, we have provided public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. Third, we are providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anyone does encounter a problem, please email Abby Wallace, that is A Wallace, WALLACE at sau39.org. In the event that the public is unable to access the meeting, we will be adjourned and rescheduled. Number 5, please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call. And number 6, finally, let's go ahead and start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, I just ask that you also state where you are and if anyone else is in the room with you during the meeting. This is required under the right to know law. So I'll start with Mr. Eckhoff.
I am alone in my house basement.
Thank you. Mr. O'Keefe.
I am alone in the metropolis of Mont Vernon.
Thank you. Ms. Hinckley.
I am alone. I am in my home in Mont Vernon.
Thank you. Mr. St. Denis.
I'm alone at home in Mont Vernon.
And I am also alone in my home in Mont Vernon. So welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We can officially call the meeting to order. And I'm just going to pull up our agenda. Okay, first on our agenda after calling the meeting to order is our public comment time. This is the first of 2 public comment sessions. So let's just take a minute and see if we have any public comment.
No members of the public with us at the moment, Madam Chair.
Oh, okay.
I be the public for a moment as a member of the PTA.
I believe you can.
Okay. So, as many of you know that have had children in the school, every year we do a breakfast with Santa in the beginning of December. This year, obviously the PTA cannot do a giant event inside the MPR. So we have been looking at other options. And so far what we've come up with is a light display around the building. The families will be allowed to drive around and in lieu of going to a breakfast with Santa event. So any members that will be there will all be done by the PTA. We will be setting it up with masks and socially distanced. Any members that are there will also be at least 6 feet apart and at least that far away from people driving through. I have run this by Chief Furlong, and he said not his place to decide, that it's up to Miss Kim and the school board. So I am bringing it up to the school board for your thoughts. We have not done too much in the way of planning because we're waiting to see if we have blessing of the school board before we spend too much money or time planning. But everything that we have talked about so far has kept everyone at a safe distance with masks if necessary. That's my little spiel.
Thank you. I just want to take a second. Adam, can you just double check that we don't have any other members of the public present? Is there anyone else who's looking for public time?
We do not, unfortunately, have any members of the public with us.
Okay, so I am okay if the rest of the board is to just take a moment and discuss that. If you want to do that quickly. Does anyone have any issues, any concerns that you'd like to raise? Kim, I'm looking at you too. You can't see me looking at you, but I'm looking at you. So any comments, concerns, anything that we need to think about in that regard?
So I think it's a great alternative. I mean, obviously, we're all sad that it can't be the traditional event, but I think it's a great alternative for the school. I support it fully.
Okay.
Just throwing this out there, could this be a good opportunity to start bringing in other cultures and religions into the mix instead of just the Santa idea, to kind of integrate in a greater cultural concept with the drive-by and the lights and the displays that might be going up? Just my 2 cents.
We certainly could. Am I muted? No.
No, you're not.
No, okay. We certainly could. Traditionally, it's been a very Christmas-centric event. And I mean, I would be happy to include other cultures, religions, etc. If anyone has ideas, for sure. I mean, what we're looking at currently is, trees with lights, blow ups, members of the PTA and Miss Kim dressing up as elves and whatnot. But, if anyone has ideas or places where I could, potentially purchase items that are not, the traditional Christmas centric, then I'm all about it. I know we have always been pretty, the standard Christmas focused, and we've never, had issue. I know we have a lot of community members that are, we do have some diversity in Mont Vernon. And as far as I know, many of those community members have, been participated in Breakfast with Santa. This will not be a Breakfast with Santa event. Likely Santa will not even be in attendance. It's going to be pretty, light and tree focused, but I'm all ears, Scott, if you have ideas or Amazon links or whatever,
Steve or Pete,
Another
any feedback?
Another idea, Jesse, you can do is sort of like a, oh God, I'm throwing a brain freeze here. Please bear with me. The Polar Express, thank you. Polar Express theme is people drive around the backside of the building, with the elves, and obviously no distribution of candy canes, but clearly that could be a great sort of concept or idea to sort of infuse. And you get a lot of people, not only from Mont Vernon, but probably outside to be willing to pay $5 a car as they drive around back as a nice donation to you guys. But yeah. I do support it. I think it's a great idea. I think the concept is awesome. Just make sure it's done in a safe way. That's all.
Right. I mean, the plan for now, as far as setup, is to keep it to, the PTA only, and, maybe a couple of staff members. So it won't be, typically we've had community members come in and volunteer. We've had different town committees donate trees. We will not be doing that this year. It'll strictly be the PTA. And, if it turns out that we have to be closer than 6 feet, even outside, we'll be wearing masks.
Okay. I also think it's a great idea if you can, do it safely and the chief doesn't have a major issue with it, then I think give it your best shot. Sounds like it would be a great event. And, you know, who doesn't need a little bit of holiday cheer, especially this year? So thanks for the great PTA partnership. Oh, Pete, did you have something? Sorry.
Yeah,
didn't
I
mean
just wanted to
interrupt
throw out real quick, and not to complicate it, but maybe, and I know this is kind of last minute, but can we turn this into maybe a food drive and a fundraising food drive for families, where somehow we get people to come and decorate around the school that they would drive, and we could still have Santa, we could take pictures, safe distance with decorated whatever. And at the same time, people could drop off food items to give to families in need during the holiday season. So it's kind of a twist on the come and eat versus come and donate. So I just throwing that out.
So
Just
we
a-
have tried that. The last 2 years we've encouraged people to bring items to donate to share, and have had almost no success. Unfortunately with that, the money that is raised through Breakfast with Santa goes right back into the school. So it's things that our kids need, that they can't get, you know, through the budget. And some of that goes back towards helping community members in need. Like, you know, some of the money does help support environmental camp and some other things that, you know, kids that want to partake in Destination Imagination but can't afford to. So some of that money does go to support our community in that way also.
Can I just jump in for 1 second? So just so you know, for the month of November, we're planning to have a food drive. And I've been sending that information out to parents every week in my Monday newsletter. So we are planning to do something like that at the school.
That's great. Thank you. I know that we just got notice of a minor technical issue. So Adam, I'm just going to throw it to you for a second to give us an update. You're muted. Technical issue.
Love to blame that on the technological issue, but that was just me forgetting to unmute. I failed to approve the people who registered for this meeting. So there were people that registered and I didn't hit the approve button ahead of time. So there are 16 people who I just approved. It should have emails to join. And I would just suggest that once they're able to join, we give another opportunity for public input. And I apologize for that oversight.
Absolutely. Thank you for the update. So, and thank you to the community member who shot me a text message alerting us to the problem. We appreciate your partnership, and thanks for being with us, and hopefully you'll be on with us soon. For those who are on Facebook, appreciate you. Okay, so for the minute, while we're waiting just to see if anyone else pops on, we are going to have a second public comment time, just so that's clear. So I'm going to close out this section of public comment time and just continue on with our agenda. So at this time, I would like to bring our attention to the consent agenda approval. Do we have a motion to approve the draft minutes from September 14th and the October 2020 principals report, or is there discussion on those items?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Jess. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Pete. Any discussion on the consent agenda items? Mr. O'Keefe?
Two things with regards to the principal's report real fast. Number one, the tarps that are set up outside the building. This past weekend, we had some kids using them as trampolines. And so there might be some things that the facilities team could use to better equip those so they're not destroyed by members of our community on weekends. That might be a decent strategy. And then number two, can we add maybe to Roger's list of things to do that the custodians, if there's downtime or if there happens to be an opportunity to go remote, that someone go around the building with a power washer. There's enormous amounts of moss growing on the exterior of the building. It's really looking rough, especially around the old entrance around front and around back. It definitely needs some serious attention. I mean, even the main walkway is just covered with dirt on the left. It's just something that I think could go a long way.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the consent agenda items? Okay, hearing none, I will just take a roll call vote to accept the motion to accept the consent agenda. Mrs. Hinckley.
Hinckley, yes.
Mr. Eckhoff.
Eckhoff, yes.
Mr. O'Keefe.
O'Keefe, yes.
Mr. St. Denis.
St. Denis, yes.
And Lawrence, yes. So thank you very much for your attention to that. Moving on, we do have a first reading of the policies that are in the board packet. It's actually quite a lengthy board packet. These are the same policies that were reviewed at the SAU board meeting on September 14th. So there's nothing that's been added or new. I didn't know if we wanted to have any discussion on those. If you feel comfortable passing them right away, if you'd like to wait another month to put them through, what are your thoughts? I thought we went through it in a pretty extensive way at the SAU board meeting. Mr. O'Keefe?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think our first read could definitely go towards the initial pass that we had at the SAU meeting, being that we're doing a consolidated meeting, and tonight could be our second read. And I'm definitely willing to adopt them as written and modified.
I agree with that. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I would accept a motion to accept the policies in the agenda packet as written. Mr. O'Keefe?
I make the motion to accept the consent agenda items for the policies as written.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second.
Thank you. Let's do a roll call. Ms. Hinckley?
Hinckley, yes.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Eckhoff and the dog, yes.
Mr. O'Keefe?
O'Keefe, yes.
Mr. St. Denis?
St. Denis, yes.
And Lawrence, yes. And sorry, my dog's barking in the background too. So appreciate you for putting those through. Thank you. Okay, we are on to our Director of Facilities. Roger, you're up for our roof report, which in the packet happens to be the very last page. So thanks. I feel accomplished already that we're through whatever it is, 158 pages of the packet.
I'll tee this up quickly. Roger, as we all know, is new as our Director of Facilities, but we've been talking about our roof at the Mont Vernon Village School for a few years and saving up for the eventual replacement of it. And so Roger's done a great job of researching that roof and has a lot to report about tonight with a recommendation. So Roger, please.
Thank you very much. So in the packet, I've just included an update on the roof. We actually had a video inspection done by a local company, which provides a lot of great information on the current conditions of the roof. We have areas that are failing, areas that are in good conditions, and other areas that in not so good conditions. The good news is that we're not taking on any water within the building. So that's just very great news. We also are planning in FY22 a roof replacement. So really with some portion of the roof reaching end of life and a roof project proposed, we really have a good opportunity in front of us here to have a successful project. So the video inspection kind of talks about itself, but in here we just have shingles that are wearing down. We have certain areas where the ridge cap is deteriorating. We do have shingles that are exposed with nails exposed, and we do have just shingles missing in certain areas as well. And as Superintendent mentioned, is that you guys have actually done a lot of work here in the past. I've been reviewing the Barker reports. There's one from 2003 that really calls out for a lot of work to be done, and it looks as though a lot of that work was done on the roof. As far as replacing it, it looks like some certain trusses were replaced as well, because it does look at a certain point that just the truss load, roof load was actually in question. There were certain documents saying that it was 40 pounds per square foot, but a couple years later, it actually says that there was other documents saying that they were 75 pounds per square foot roof load. So as that was in question, I see since 2003, the roof has been on just a snow removal plan for taking anything excess of 40 pounds off of the roof. So there's definitely been some roof raking going on with the roof, as I can see, and that does take away a life from the shingles as well. And although we're talking about roofs, there's a lot of talk about just the attic insulation, the ductwork as well. And from the project that I can see that was proposed, those were add alternates, and they did not seem to happen at the time. It looks like the replacement of the ductwork was about $180,000 because of it failing. We're losing heat in the attic, which is actually causing a lot of the ice dams on the existing roof as well. And we're just getting a lot of energy loss by losing that heat to just a cold attic. 2013 report actually says that a lot of that roof work was done, that the roof was replaced, that the leaking was replaced, but they do make mention again that just the attic insulation, the attic ductwork, and that also needs to be addressed. So again, I know we're here talking about roofing, but I just want to make sure that we're also considering what's going on in that attic, because if we are to replace that roof, having just not good conditions in that attic is certainly not going to help a new roof's life as time goes on. So what we're proposing here is really to just contact a consultant, an envelope consultant, to really come up with a detail that we can send out to bid for the roof, so that we can reach out to companies within the areas, get apples to apples. There's many ways that we can go out to bid. We do have certain areas that are failing, other areas that are in good condition. We can actually do a phasing. We can consider that. We can do the whole roof at the same time. And not to get off track again, is I've heard talk of in the 2013 report of just solar panels and moving to them as well. For me, I look at the roof system as one and solar panels as just two separate systems. You can tie them together. We just need to be cautious as who's carrying warranty on the solar panels, and are we ruining the warranty of a roof if we were to go that way. I'm definitely interested in pedestal mount, just if we have issues with solar panels, we're not having to get on the roof. Again, I certainly don't want to get off track with that, but it's just something that we should consider as we're looking at this as we move forward. So again, the roof is not leaking. We're looking at proposing to replace this in FY22. I think we just have a really good opportunity in front of us here to plan this well and really have a successful project. And if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Mr. O'Keefe?
Yes, so Roger, thank you very much for doing the report. I really like the videos because we can visually see, especially the issues up around the peak. My concern is over by the custodian's entrance on the backside of the gym. The person that was doing the inspection was saying the shingles are crumbling to the point where there's really no coverage there. Do we need to worry about leakage in that particular area? Is that something that's more pertinent and urgent to replace and repair now versus waiting a year?
I definitely agree with that. That is a smaller roof portion over the maintenance side, and it really is crumbling if you look at it. I think we try to address that before winter. I did get a quote on that. I would like to just get a couple more. I know it's a very small roof portion, but it's just I'd rather just get a couple on that, if just moving forward and try to repair that before winter.
Yeah, and then the other spots that I personally noticed, as well as what was in the report, was over the 6th grade, 5th grade wing, specifically towards the west side or the sunset. Is that something that we also need to repair sooner than later? The missing shingles, the cracking, I don't call it the peak or the canopy.
I think we need to address the missing shingles in the areas, and definitely just reassess the peak to make sure that we definitely don't have any water going into this winter and coming into spring as well. I think we try to just do minimum repairs until we actually go into the full project, but just making sure that we protect the building. And I don't know if you guys were around, but in 2003, I do see that there was a major roofing leak where we actually shut down school for a week. So again, that's why I think we have a really good opportunity in front of us here to just be proactive.
And so that leads me to my final question. Is this something that you think we should be phasing in over a course of a couple of years? You replace the gym roof, then replace the 6th grade wing, then replace the rest of the building. Is there an urgent need to actually do that? Or is this a one and done kind of situation that you think we can accomplish in a year and a half or 2 years?
I think we break it down into phasing because we have different parts of the roof that are in different conditions. I guess the only thing that really I think about is the aesthetics, is that how are we able to match the dialogue of what we have existing there? Does that matter to us? And maybe we have a section, maybe it's the backside that we keep. It doesn't actually matter. It's not an aesthetic issue. We actually don't see that backside. I think we work with the consultant and we break the roof down and see if, I think we try to break it down into phasing and see where that gets us, but we also see where the bids come back. And I mean, if we're seeing that phasing is a significant increase compared to just doing it at the same time, I think we have to look at that as well.
Great, thank you.
Roger, I did want to let you know, I don't know if you looked at any of the historical data that we'd received information on solar. Back in October of 2015, we did have a presentation. Jim Miner had brought in Bob Hayden. He was from Standard Power, and he did a whole presentation to the board at that time about solar and the potential of solar on our roofs. Then I don't know if that might be helpful to you, but when I was, prepping for this meeting, I did see that we had a pretty significant presentation back then. So I don't know if that information would be relevant to you at this point, but that was the last time that the board really did take a really solid look at solar, was about 5 years ago.
I would love that information if it is at hand. A lot of me has been trying to find information. I appreciate everyone that's been within our buildings that just says, hey, Roger, do you need this? Because some of it has saved me really years worth of time. So any information like that, certainly. We do have an in-house electrician, and I am known to dabble as electrician as a hobby. I'm a master electrician as well, just so if anyone that didn't know that. So any information you have, I think we have a really good opportunity up there to go green with at least 70% off grid and 25%. I don't want to speak out loud, but I think with the service size that we have there and our plug load, I mean, we really can go green. The other thing I want to consider is, I know we're talking about roofs, but maybe changing our fuel in the year to come. If we're going to go to a green building, we're burning number 2 fuel oil up there. The 2013 Barker report also talks about that as well. Something we should just look into and consider. I'm fine with looking into it and getting us numbers, but really, we have a great opportunity at this building.
Awesome, thank you. What I'll do, Roger, if you don't mind, is I can forward you the agenda packet that has the notes from there. I'm not exactly sure, how informative it'll be for you, but at least it'll give you a place to start, and maybe you can find Jim's old notes, I don't know, or contact Mr. Hayden, who's referenced in this report.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, my pleasure. Adam?
Yeah, thank you. So Roger, I just want to make sure that the board is clear that your plan is to engage an envelope specialist to help us develop a specification that we can then use to get bids rather soon for work next summer, because this is the time of year when big contractors are lining up next summer's work, and we want to be in front of that, not behind it. So is that your plan, and what timeline might the board expect to hear when bids would come back?
That is my plan. Envelope specialists, I would say that we should be able to get them down here within a month and a half, realistically. We should have a design, maybe I would say by January. We could be out to bid by February, with bids back by the end of February, March, and set up for a project for beginning of July.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on Roger's presentation? Mr. Eckhoff?
I've got a few questions and comments. So I would thank you for the report. It's excellent work. My question is, have we looked at metal roofing as an option? In terms of length of service from the metal roof versus shingles, what the cost difference is between the two. Have we looked at, or are we going to get a separate estimate as to what the replacement cost and upgrade is for the insulation and ductwork as a first phase, and then the second phase would be the roof? So 2 separate things. And I agree with your comment. There's no sense of putting a new roof on if the insulation and the ductwork isn't operating properly. So we should fix that first and then go to the roof. And my third comment would be, and I'm going to be full disclosure here, that I do have an acquaintance, if that's the right word. It's my son's brother-in-law who runs a solar company that deals primarily with large government and industrial buildings and installing solar. So I would welcome the opportunity to invite him to present to the board and to Roger what exactly they can provide to the school district for this project, if they can. Full disclosure, again, I would recuse myself from any voting on that project, but I do have somebody that I could have come and talk about solar implementation for 2021. This is what he does. It's his company. So I think solar is the right way to go, but I also think metal roof and doing this in phases is probably the right financial steps for the district to take.
I would suggest, just a suggestion, if I could, Madam Chair, that perhaps we connect that person with Roger and let Roger meet with and have it not be a board conversation, if possible, and then make recommendations to the board through Roger, if that's all right.
I'm fine with that. I also wanted to add, Roger, I did hear from a previous board member who served at the time that we were discussing solar, that Bob Hayden probably is not doing this anymore, but I do have another contact for you that may be viable. So I'll email that to you. And
Great.
Thank you, Mr. Roberge, for texting me again the information. I appreciate you for updating. Thank you. Any further board discussion on this? Or sorry, Roger, go ahead.
No, it's okay. And I think Mr. Eckhoff, that's a great point. I think we still engage an envelope consultant because the design will always be the design for our roof. And as far as just the shingles or metal roofing, I believe I noted that in the report. I agree with that as well. And I think that becomes an option for us. I think that's a discussion with the consultant, just seeing where our pitches are, how many valleys we have up there, and really if metal is appropriate. I'm definitely down with metal. It's longer lasting. But I still think we don't lose track of what's going on in that attic. I do have a number from years ago from a vendor that obviously went up there, measured out the ductwork and everything. And I think it's a matter of getting the information from them as far as how much duct did we calculate. And that's also another one that needs to go out to bid as well, just because with the proposal of 180,000, that's a number for me. We just got to make sure that it's appropriate. It's going out to bid, and it's an apples to apples discussion as well. The reports do call out for what type of insulation should go in there. The existing insulation, if it's covered, it'll protect it as well and actually do the job that it's needed. It's just it's a matter into looking into everything, and I agree with that. And maybe it is changing the roofing into phasing, which will allow us to do more inside of the building as well.
Thank you. I'll get the information and I'll connect the two of you together.
Appreciate it.
Thank
So Sarah,
you.
do you need a motion to start that process for Roger's behalf?
I don't know that we need one. I mean, we could certainly entertain one if it makes anybody feel better, but I think that that's within Roger's purview in his position. So I don't think we've needed motions for that in the past. Adam, am I correct in that?
Yeah, we're going to start working on this, and we don't have the authorization to do anything until the board acts, but we want to make sure before we go forward that the board is on board with us. And so it seems like there's a consensus, and that's good enough for this evening.
Okay, thank you. Before we move into discussion on the budget, I would like to kind of circle back to our public time, since we maybe missed some of the public in our first public comment time. I know there's a second one coming up after the budget, but I would like to go ahead and open it up now for a few minutes in case any members of the public who missed that first public time have any comments or questions. And it does look like we have one hand raised.
Hello?
We hear you, Kim.
Okay, great. So, gentlemen, I'm on a meeting, so be quiet. Sorry, they're walking in. So 2 quick things. The first thing was, I just wanted to make sure that we were informing the school of the selectmen's decision and the feedback that we got from our emergency management director and our health officer to do trick-or-treating from 3 to 5 at a different time, and to not sanction any candy collection based on what's going on from COVID-19. So it was more of we're getting a lot of feedback in regards to that not being the appropriate decision, but the board took the emergency management director and the health officer's input and the safety. And we know that this is a different time, and saddened that it's not being as supported by the community as we would like it to do. But we feel that's, you know, the decision that the board made. And I don't believe that'll be changing between now and then. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was, thank you for keeping the capital reserve fund and putting the money towards the roof and that type of thing in the budgeting process. The only thing I'd like to make sure that the board keeps in mind, as well as the facilities director, is the cost of materials and the things that have gone up based on not being able to get them. I would be very concerned if we're putting something out to bid in a February or March time that we're still under, that people cannot get the materials that they need, that housing costs and building costs have escalated in this time frame, and that we're hearing that we don't see that that's changing very quickly. So I want to make sure that we're keeping in mind that, you know, I understand it's a priority in order to do the roof, but let's keep what costs may be, you know, maybe it's another year out based on just COVID and the manufacturing. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberge. We appreciate your comments and your insight about the building. I'm just going to take one more moment to see if any other members of the public have a comment at this time, since we might have missed you in the beginning. And I'm not seeing any other hands raised, and I'm not seeing any questions. So I am going to continue with our agenda. No, if you're on and a member of the public, we are going to have one more brief public comment time. So if you missed it and you want to join back in, we welcome your input, certainly in the next public comment time. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn the meeting over to Superintendent Steele to get us started with our budget process this year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is our everyone's favorite time of year, where we spend 4 or 5 months talking about our budget. So happy kickoff to the budget season this evening to all of us. So our budget this year we've put together with some assumptions. The first and most important assumption is that next year will be a relatively normal school year. That might be a big assumption on our part. However, we're going to move forward with that assumption, and if something changes by January or February, when we get to deliberative session, we can make changes if we need to. But in general, our budget is assuming that enrollment returns to where we projected it to be, and that we don't have any extraordinary expenses because of COVID-19. Looking ahead, we see through the end of the budget process in March, there being a couple of warrant articles on the ballot. Those include the proposed budget that's always there, our continued contribution to the capital reserve fund in the amount of $50,000 to fund our long-term plan, as we have for a long time, and then 2 other unique warrant articles that are not always on the ballot. One is we might have a collective bargaining agreement warrant article with our Mont Vernon teachers. Negotiations have begun, and we assume there will be something on the ballot for voters to approve, as well as an updated Amherst Mont Vernon tuition agreement for the 7th and 8th grade students from Mont Vernon who attend the Amherst Middle School. Those negotiations between the 2 boards have also started and are likely to result in something that will be on the ballot. Moving beyond those major topics, some areas of focus for us this coming year, some of which we'll hear more of at the SAU meeting in a couple of weeks. But that first topic is a real focus on math curriculum, instruction, and the related resources. That's a high focus for us right now, given the challenges we've had over the past couple of years with our math test results. And I want to focus on the fact that those are issues that are not with our teachers and not necessarily with instruction, but with our structural design of how we teach math and what's going on with math in our SAU. More on that to come, and that frankly doesn't have a big impact on the budget in this proposed budget, but it's a major focus for us that we'll be looking at for the next couple of years. The next is Roger Preston, our facilities director, has added preventative maintenance costs into our budget really for the first time in a long time. And so that results in a moderate increase to our budget. Other things to be aware of, and some things that are still outstanding. We have a transportation RFP out right now. Our bus contract is up with our big bus provider, and we're looking for proposals for the next 5 years, which might have an impact on our budget. And so that's still to be determined. The New Hampshire retirement system sets the employer paid rates every 2 years. And this coming fiscal year will be that when those rates are adjusted, and there are increases of either 2 or about 3% to our teacher and employee rates for the New Hampshire retirement system. And so that has an impact on our budget. Our medical insurance rates have a guaranteed maximum rate increase of 6.3%, although there's a reduction in our medical expenses in our proposed budget due to the plan changes and employee changes. But still, without that 6.3% increase, our savings would have been larger in the medical insurance lines. And then, of course, the other two things I mentioned, the tuition agreement with Amherst and the contract negotiation with the MVEA. Included in the memo I shared with the board includes a budget reconciliation that shows all of the things affecting this budget. And so you'll note that the default budget has an increase of over $230,000. In that increase is a $252,000 increase just in anticipated tuition for our 7th and 8th grade students. That has no change in rate for the tuition agreement that's in negotiation. That's just as a result of both the natural changes to the Amherst budget, but more importantly, a pretty dramatic increase in the number of students that will be attending AMS next year from Mont Vernon. So that's a major increase, and it actually, without that, our default budget would be down from this current year. We have some things that went up and down, but that's by far the most significant and major impact. There is special education costs besides out-of-district tuition, which is down $73,000. There's other special education costs that are up $54,000. So special education on the whole is about a $20,000 decrease for us when you include both in-district and out-of-district. Jumping down to the difference between the default and the proposed, there's only about a $5,000 difference between the two. So there are roughly no changes between the two. There are several things that are different, but the result is only about a $5,000 or a 0.1% difference between the two. We included in the memo a few things that should be old hat for the board. First is our capital maintenance plan, which is just a continuation of the plan that was developed a few years ago. We're right on track for that. The first major inflection point for that plan will be when we get bids back for this roof. And we're hoping that that our estimated roof cost is somewhere in the ballpark and that we can absorb if it's over or save some money if it's under. But that plan is right on track. We've included for the first time our curriculum review and adoption plan, which is something that speaks to what parts of our curriculum will be reviewed and what might result in a resource request over the next 5 years. And so that's included in the memo as a link for board members. And then we've also included a staffing projection, not only for the coming fiscal year, but for 2 after that. And so if you look on page 5 of that memo, we actually show that there is no changes to proposed staffing that's anticipated for not only this year, but for the 2 years after it. So there's no plans to increase or decrease the number of teachers or any other support staff throughout the building. We certainly can't anticipate if there's changes based on special education or if enrollment fluctuations are beyond what we project. But as of right now, we anticipate no staffing changes for those next couple of years. And so with that, that's an overview for the board and for the public. From here, we look forward to engaging with our budget committee and going through the process of an extensive board review as we round into January and prepare for the public meeting. And as a reminder, the way the process works is the board has until the public hearing in January to make adjustments or changes to the budget. Once that public hearing happens, the board is able to either reduce or remove warrant articles from what could be on the ballot. but cannot increase or add anything new after that public hearing in January. And then in February, voters that show up will have the opportunity to increase or decrease any budget or warrant article, but can't add any warrant articles or remove warrant articles altogether. And then as a final step, all voters get to come and vote in March to either approve or not approve the warrant articles as they stand as presented at deliberative session. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the initial presentation. We appreciate it. Any questions from board members at this point? Mr. O'Keefe?
Are we going to receive a Google Docs link at some point, just so we can start the process of reviewing it? And if we can, make sure that this year is highlighted on that tab for increases in what categories, and more importantly, the justification for those increases. I know we've done that in the past.
Indeed. So Michelle is on here. And Michelle, when do you anticipate sending the Google document link to the board and the budget committee?
Either later this evening or first thing in the morning. I'm putting together a table of contents in the front of the document, which will make it a little easier to maneuver through to the different tabs. But that will definitely be shared soon.
Awesome. And then one more question real fast in terms of that $5,000 sort of increase. Are we increasing any staffing percentages as part of the default budget? Are we doing any changes of roles or increases in those staffing spots in addition to obviously the contract that's going to be up for negotiation?
No, the only thing I want to verify though, Meg, you're on here, and are there any changes to your special education staffing? I just don't recall that off the top of my head.
No, there are not.
Thank you.
Okay. I got one more question, but I'll wait for everyone else.
You're welcome to go ahead and ask your question now, unless Pete, I see Pete, you have got your hand raised too, so.
No, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, just Roger, for the maintenance piece that we haven't included in the past. What are some of the things that would be included in that, the preventive maintenance side? And more importantly, why is that in the default budget versus or is it included in the extra 5,000?
It's included in the extra 5,000 because the preventative maintenance is not something that was in last year's budget, not required by contract, and it doesn't get to be in the default. So Roger, did you hear that question? And are you able?
I did. So for me, in years past, honestly, last year's number was just 17,000 with no description behind the service contracts account line. And what I'm referring to is just 10, 26, 20, 431, 10. It's just identified as service contracts. There was just 17,000 in there with really no detail behind it. So as far as the service contract, for me, this is the preventative maintenance account. This is really what maintains our building for the future and really keeps our systems going. One of them is just boiler system maintenance. What I found at Village School is that the boilers actually haven't gone under maintenance since 2018 is the last tag that I find on the boiler. I find that there's no history of chimney sweeping up there. So it's those items that I want to pick up on. It's just really a detailed list. It's water treatment of the boiler loop, just getting chemical treatment in that, getting a chemical system, fire extinguishers, checking our fire extinguishers yearly to make sure that they're charged and they're tagged. That's a yearly requirement. Checking the kitchen Ansel hood system up there in the kitchen to make sure that that system, if needed, is going to work. We do have a sprinkler pressure system up there. In our custodial closets and certain storage rooms, there are a sprinkler system that needs to be checked annually. We also have the fire components. Our fire system also needs to be checked annually as well. As we go down through it, again, like I mentioned, it's just chimney sweeping. We want to continue with line striping of the parking lot. Annual oil-fired maintenance that I mentioned, just preventative maintenance on our generator that we have up there as well. That's another thing that I'll talk about as another time. Our generator, that needs maintenance. It's a minor and a major a year. Major just being doing the oil change, minor just going through the fluids and checking, just running through a transfer test to make sure that it's working. We have an underground storage tank up there. We have UST inspections that we have to meet every year. There's also 3-year leak tests that come up on that system to make sure that underground, that pipe is not leaking as well. What else here? We do have a lift system up there for the stage. It needs to be inspected annually. We do have a lift. We need to make sure that it's working. We also, I don't mean to laugh, I'm sorry, but there's no pest control contract up there. We need to pick up pest control. I mean, we need to make sure that all of our buildings has pest control. It's really just a monitoring. It's a detail that says, hey, do we have mice in our building? How are they addressing them? Do we have rodents around our building? Do we have traps around our building? It's just picking up a monitoring system for pest control.
Roger, you're probably not aware, but the board passed a motion, no pests in the school. So that's why we don't have that pest control contract. They're not allowed.
That's good. I appreciate that. But we need
without a mask.
Without
we need a program monitoring that to ensure that Kim's not allowing pests in the building. We also have a well up there. We're required to have, it's called the DES master sampling schedule. We're required to test for certain samples every year to make sure that the water system and the water that we're providing to our staff and students is adequate. Our gym inspections, this is also, this comes up in all of our buildings. I find no history on gym inspections. What gym inspections are is that we have hoops that have motors in them. They raise up and down. They're on winch systems. Sometimes these components are 30 feet up in the air. They may weigh 20 to 30 pounds. We need to make sure that their integrity is good and they're actually secure in the ceiling. We need a certified company to come in annually and go through these components to make sure that they're safe, they're working for our students and the public that we allow to use these. As we go through, there's just kitchen exhaust cleaning that needs to happen every year. We do have an issue with radon up there. We need to make sure that our radon removal system is working. Each year we have to clean out our septic system. We need to make sure that that septic is cleaned out, and if it isn't, it's going to end up backing up into the building, and we don't want to be dealing with that issue. We also have air quality testing that we need to account for. We're on a 4-time-a-year rhythm. We want to continue with that. HV, then I'll be honest with you, I have an allowance in here for an extra $1,500 for the stuff that I'm not aware of at this time, or new systems that we might pick up along the way that we need people to make sure that they're just checking out to keep those components running. Ideally for me, this is the account that keeps our building running. This is preventative maintenance. It's what the building needs. Although there was a number to that this year that I'm working off of, I've just provided good detail as to what our buildings need and what's really going to keep them running for the future.
Roger, I just have to say, like, if you could see the faces on the Hollywood squares here, thank you. You're doing a tremendous job. I think I can speak on behalf of everyone in this moment and just say, we really appreciate the detail that you're going into and making sure that our building is going to stay in the best shape. And thank you. Want to come look at my house and see what's going on here? Like, you're doing awesome. Thank you very, very much for the detailed report and for being so thoughtful in your presentation. We appreciate that.
No problem. I honestly love what I do. I love fixing stuff. I eventually, at the end of the day, stuff's going to break down. The way I see us in the future is this stuff's going to break down and it's going to be repaired before anybody knows that it's broken down. That's where I see facilities, and I'm 4 months in at this point, and thank you for that comment, but just wait till you see what I can do.
Okay, so we're all going to buckle up and we're going to wait and see. We'll reevaluate in a few months and make sure that we keep you on task, but I'm really not feeling too nervous about your abilities at this point. So really, thank you very, very much. And I did see a public comment that the public viewers are very excited too. And so just know that, we certainly appreciate your enthusiasm and your diligence. So thank you so much. We're happy to have you on board. Mr. Ackoff, did I see your hand up? I want to.
Yeah, if I could. Roger, great job. Not to make work for you, but if you could grid out what you just went through, and I guess my ask is to grid it out, and also as part of the grid is what is required by law or what is recommended. So you know, something is required to be cleaned every year, like a kitchen hood, then that should be listed as a requirement that we have to pay for every year. If it's recommended that we clean I'm just use the same example, a kitchen hood every 3 years, then list it as a recommended every 3 years. If you could grid that out and potentially add also what the expected cost might be, that would be good to have for us and also for the public to know where that money is going and why it's going. My second question, I guess, is directed to Adam regarding the budget being locked as of January, and I'm not going to get the verbiage right, but has there been any discussion at a state government level, given the situation we're in, and I was sitting here trying to come up with the right verbiage, and I probably have not, but like unforeseen world events that would cause our budget to balloon unexpectedly, like it did this past year, and we're kind of put into a box where we can't raise the incremental funds to cover necessary items by law, whereas we really need to have cleaning supplies. We need to have all these things that make our schools safe, but yeah, our hands are tied, our wallets are tied, and the fact that the budget's locked and loaded as of January of that year, and we can't go back and basically ask for more money. So I guess my question is there anything afoot to make amendments so that schools that are in a financial pickle with world events, that they can somehow raise the money to cover the cost of our operation?
Yes. So this will take a minute to answer. Is that all right, Madam Chair? Okay. There are a couple of mechanisms that already exist. So first is a school district, if they get to their annual meeting time and realize in their current year's budget, so in our example, this current year's budget, if we thought we may not make it to the end and have enough money, the board can elect to put a warrant article on the ballot in March that's called a deficit appropriation. And that goes to fund the current year, not the next year. And that already exists in law and can be done. The difficulty with that is that voters can say no. And then if you have a deficit, you've broken the law. And so that's something, I've done that in the past when I had special education expenses that I was unsure if we could get it to the end of the fiscal year with what we had. And so we had a contingency warrant article just in case. And all the things that we had budgeted that we didn't spend money on because we were saving for those special education expenses, once we passed the deficit appropriation warrant article in March, we were able to go back and spend the money on those other things because we knew we had the backup money with the deficit appropriation article. So that's one thing. In a real emergency, if, for example, the roof collapsed and we didn't have insurance to cover it, and we didn't have the capital reserve fund to cover it, and therefore we couldn't run school because we didn't have the money to repair the roof, we can petition the Superior Court, as we were planning to do before the governor's emergency order came that allowed us to not have to use the Superior Court. But we could petition the Superior Court for a special school district meeting. And by meeting, I mean a unique instance of a public hearing, a deliberative session, and voting outside of the normal annual school district meeting. And that's something that costs money and takes time. And there's a 5-part test that we have to prove that what happens is an emergency, that something we couldn't have foreseen, something we don't have other funds to pay for, all of that. But if granted by the Superior Court, then we can have a special meeting where the voters go through and could give us extra money that we didn't have appropriated in the past. The third thing is RSA 198-4B. RSA 198-4B allows school districts to establish a contingency fund. A contingency fund is a unique thing. It's something that towns have had for a long time. And so I'll use a town as an example. So when every year towns collect tax revenue from folks, They give it to us to pay for school taxes. They give it to the county to pay for county taxes, and they keep some for themselves to pay for town taxes. At every year when they set the tax rate, if they have money left over from the previous year,
It's 19 hours.
they're able to set aside some of what's left over for what's called retainage. And they're able to keep it set aside in case there's ever an emergency in the future where they don't have funds available. They can't spend that retainage without getting voter approval or going to court to get court approval, but they have the money available. Well, I think it was, I can't remember how long ago, I think 6 years ago, maybe 7, the legislature decided to allow school districts to begin setting aside contingency funds as well. So normally every time the tax rates are set, everything that we have left over is an unassigned fund balance. Every penny of it goes back to the taxpayers to offset taxes. A contingency fund, if approved by voters, allows school boards to electively set aside funds into the same type of bucket as the towns have for retainage to be used for future emergencies. It is not funds, those funds aren't available to the school board to use without voter approval or without approval by the Department of Revenue Administration or the DOE. So it's not like the school board can raid those funds and use them whenever they want. It's just funds that are set aside for emergencies. I've never advocated for school districts to use those or to have those contingency funds because it's an opinion thing. It's really a matter of preference. We don't have the fluctuations in revenue that the town has. It's possible that a town may not be able to collect all of the tax revenue from residents because they may not pay or they might have other issues. Our revenue is guaranteed. There is not one dime of our revenue that we aren't guaranteed to get from the town, up to and including the town having to borrow money to be able to give it to us. So if the town doesn't have the money, they literally have to borrow money from somebody in order to make sure that we get our money to run the schools. And so for that reason, and because we have the mechanisms of deficit appropriations and emergency school board meetings, I've never really advocated for a contingency fund because how often does something happen where we really need more money than we have? Well, I guess we know this is the year. We've learned that this year. So if interested, the school board could certainly have a discussion about RSA 198-4B and putting that warrant article on the ballot for voters to approve or not approve. And we could have that discussion, but that really is something that is a board preference and something that we would have to weigh carefully because those funds would then not go back to taxpayers to offset their tax bills, but would instead be set aside for a future emergency by the schools. So sorry, I know that was probably a lot longer than you expected, but that's the answer.
No, I appreciate that. And I personally think that is something that our board should consider, given the times we're in. That's just my opinion. Thank you, though.
Thank you both. That was a very thoughtful discussion. Any other discussion from board members at this point or on the budget? I do know that all board members should have received information or invitations rather to the budget review. I believe the first one is tomorrow from 5 to 7. Michelle, nod if this is right. I think it is. Yeah. Okay, good. So if you did not receive that invitation, just double check your email. I do believe that the email migration is going well. I got emails saying my email was migrated, so I'm guessing that maybe the rest of you did as well. So good luck with the migration. And I know I for one am looking forward to taking a look at the budget a little bit more deeply. So thank you for the initial presentation. I did want to just take a minute and circle back to the principal's report because Kim, I didn't get to say that I really appreciated the detail that you put in and the updates about the grade level, grade level interactions, what all those grades are doing. So if anyone didn't have a chance to take a look at that, it was kind of got buried in our consent agenda, but I did want to give you a shout out for that because I enjoyed reading it. I think it's great. As a person who doesn't have kids in the school anymore, I love seeing, what they're doing at the grade level and kind of getting a feel for, the flavor of the building and also just understanding, what our remote learners are doing. So I certainly appreciate you calling that out. I appreciated the NWEA updates and also getting to see some of our teachers, getting to see the new staff. I love that. So thank you very much for the format of that report. I thought it was really great. I didn't know, and I didn't ask you if you had anything that you wanted to add, so I wanted to give you that opportunity. I apologize for not doing that sooner.
No, that's okay. I mean, honestly, I think everything's covered in the board report, and I don't have anything else right now. Thank you, though. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, let me just click over. Sorry, with the world of Zoom, I'm clicking over to make sure I'm seeing the agenda and everything else too. So hang on one sec while I click back over.
Sarah, I've got one quick question with regards to not necessarily the budget as a whole, but the budget process.
Please, go ahead.
Adam, is it appropriate now for us to engage legal counsel with regards to how we're going to approach our public hearing, the logistics behind it, and more importantly, our process for the deliberative session with regards to the COVID-19 and the precautions that we need to take? Clearly, attendance has never been an issue for us, but in theory, it could be. And do we need to engage about how we actually execute upon that?
That's a great point. And to be honest, one I haven't even thought of yet. So I can do that. It's possible that one of the emergency orders by the governor has already covered that particular topic. But either way, I'll find out because we'll need to know for all three of our districts. So thanks for reminding me on that.
Thank you, Mr. O'Keefe. That is a really great point. I believe we do have a non-public session this evening, but before we do that, I just wanted to take the opportunity to offer one final public comment time. I do see that we have a few members of the public with us, so if anyone has any comments at this time, I do invite you to raise your hand and we will invite you to come on board. No one's got it. No one's going to be brave and say, okay. Well, again, we really appreciate the members of the public joining us. If you're viewing on Facebook, we thank you for your participation and your interest in our process. It really is important for everyone to be engaged and involved. So we thank you for joining us. And, for the people who have joined us here on Zoom, we appreciate you also. Really, we're happy to have you as part of the process. So thanks so much for being here. It's always exciting to see when there's public present. Okay, unless anyone else on the board has any other business that's not on the agenda, I would entertain a motion to enter non-public. And Adam, do you have our RSA handy?
Yep, 91A 2(3)A.
Thank you. So do I have anyone who would like to make a motion to enter non-public?
I'll make that motion to enter into non-public.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we need to roll call vote. So Ms. Hinckley?
Hinckley, yes.
Mr. Eckhoff?
Eckhoff, yes.
Mr. O'Keefe?
O'Keefe, yes.
Thank you. Mr. St. Denis?
St. Denis, yes.
And Lawrence, yes. So thank you so much. We are going to head over into our non-public session now. Thank you everyone for being with us.
Sarah, I don't think we need any members of the team besides me, I don't think. Is that right?
I believe so, yeah.